I think that it seems to me that Kamala Harris has the edge. The Democrats it's a fact that Democrats have a more organized get out the vote operation, a more organized door knocking operation. And it feels like she's gonna be over the top. But I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. So it's not an official prediction. It's just you asked my gut, that's my gut.
We are going to spend the next half hour visiting some of the key swing states, which will determine whether Kamala Harris becomes president for the first time, a black woman, or whether Donald Trump returns for a second stint as the so-called leader of the free world. Well, let's start with Pennsylvania. Alistair Dauber is the Washington correspondent for The Times. He's en route to Pennsylvania right now. Alistair, thanks very much for joining us. Perhaps you could just first of all explain what we mean by a swing state. Why are these states so important? Why are they swing states?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, sure. So, obviously, the US is made up of 50 states, but you can pretty much bet quite certainly how some states are going to vote. So, we know, for example, that it would be an incredible shock if Kamala Harris doesn't win California. It'd be a huge shock if Donald Trump doesn't win Texas, just because of the demographics and all sorts of historical reasons in those states why they tend to back the parties. The swing states are those that flip between the two candidates in elections. So those that sometimes vote for the Democratic candidate and sometimes vote for the Republican candidate. And it's those states where the two candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, have been traveling to for pretty much every day now for the last few weeks to try and garner as much possible support as they can.
So they're like our marginal seats where parties tip in a lot of time, money and resources to try and kind of, bag those. So look, just explain to us, Alistair, why is Pennsylvania so important?
Well, Pennsylvania is one of there are seven really, we think, swing states in this election, those that could go one way or the other. And Pennsylvania is really important, A, because it's got a large number of votes in the Electoral College, the system by which an American election is decided, but also for the Democrats, it's a kind of must win. There hasn't been a Democrat who has won the White House without winning Pennsylvania since 1948, since Harry Truman. So the Democrats pretty much know that if Kamala Harris is going to win on Tuesday night, she's got to win Pennsylvania. It's possible that she can win without winning Pennsylvania, but history tells us that Pennsylvania is really key. Where the Democrats lose Pennsylvania, they lose the White House.
And who has it now?
Well, Joe Biden won it in 2020. He won it marginally. It wasn't a very sizable win, but he won it. And it's the place now where Donald Trump knows if he can tip Pennsylvania, he's got a very good chance. And the state itself is interesting. There's Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, two very Democrat cities, two large cities in America. Kamala Harris needs buckets and buckets full of votes in those two cities. In between, it's much more rural. There's a lot of heavy industry that's disappeared from Pennsylvania in the last few decades. Those areas tend to tilt towards Donald Trump, and it really could come down to a really small number of votes, even just a couple of thousand that decides the result.
Gosh, what are the latest polls telling us about Pennsylvania?
Well, to highlight just how close Pennsylvania is, there's a new poll out today for USA Today, which gives each of them 49%. It's that close. But the detail of the poll is interesting and not necessarily good news for Kamala Harris. Northampton County, which is one of these rural states near a large town called Allentown, it's one of the swingiest places in the country. They tend to back whoever arrives in the White House in Northampton County. Northampton County gives Donald Trump a 2-point lead at the moment. And of course, we've seen many polls and they flip and we know that they change and they're very close. But the poll in USA Today tends to suggest that if it's correct, then Donald Trump is ahead in Pennsylvania.
And Alistair, could any third-party candidates make a difference? For example, someone like the Green Party candidate, Jill Stein?
So, they're on 49% each, which, maths was never my strongest point at school. But I know that doesn't, you add those two together, we don't get to 100%. And that's because we do have third party candidates. Jill Stein, probably the most prominent from the Green Party. Jill Stein isn't going to be elected president on Tuesday, and she's not going to win any states. But even if she wins a couple of thousand votes in Pennsylvania. We just said a second ago that the election could be decided by such a small number. If she does take votes away from either Trump or from Harris, that could open the door for the other one.
Gosh, that's so interesting. And look, in terms of polls, there was this other poll that came out. People are really talking about it, a Seltzer poll about Iowa that really seems to put the cat amongst the pigeons. It puts Harris ahead of Trump. Just tell us, really, how much should we read into this Seltzer poll?
Well, we haven't heard of Kamala Harris doing well in Iowa. It's one of those bankers for Donald Trump. If Kamala Harris won Iowa on Tuesday night, then really Pennsylvania isn't in the equation anymore. She'll win Pennsylvania and she'll win the White House. It feels like an outlier, but of course it comes very close to the election. I think people will take them seriously. The other point to make about the poll is it's been done for the newspaper in Des Moines, the state capital, the Des Moines Register. They have some very sophisticated political journalists there because, of course, every 4 years, the Iowa caucuses are the first of the nation to choose the candidates for the two parties. And so the Des Moines Register is pretty good at its political coverage and knowing what's going on in Iowa. And it does feel like an outlier, but it's certainly sent shockwaves through the political country here.
Yeah, gosh, so interesting. Alistair, well, look, really great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for that brilliant sort of update on all things in Pennsylvania. Now, we're heading to Wisconsin next, and we are going to be chatting with Rob Mentzer, who is a reporter for Wisconsin Public Radio, and he's joining us from Warsaw, Wisconsin. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aisha. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a wee bit about Wisconsin. What's the demographic? What's it like as a place?
Sure. So Wisconsin is in the upper Midwest. Actually, it borders Iowa, which may be relevant with that poll that I heard you discussing. And it's a largely white state. There's a lot of it is rural. The largest city is Milwaukee. There's a lot of black voters in Milwaukee. And the other sort of population center is Madison. That's where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. There's a lot of younger voters. Those two cities are sort of the big Democratic strongholds. And Trump has performed very well in the rural areas, sort of similar to Pennsylvania in that way.
And who currently holds Wisconsin?
So like Pennsylvania, this is one of those blue wall states that Trump won surprisingly in 2016, then swung back. Biden won it narrowly in 2020. Democrats have tended to win statewide races. They control the governorship. They've won some state Supreme Court races in the Trump era, but Trump has done better. Trump did better than expected in 2020. He just narrowly lost instead of narrowly winning as he did in 2016.
And what's the polling that you've seen on Wisconsin? What's that polling saying at the moment?
Sure. Well, we're one of these tied states. Most of the polling shows Harris with a 1 or 2 point edge. That's the most sort of what the polling averages would suggest to you. But all those results are within the margin of error. There is still a concern that polls may not be capturing Trump enthusiasm because that is what happened in 2016 and 2020. So, I think it seems like the polls say that Harris has an edge, but it's like not for sure.
And you just mentioned there that there's a sizable proportion of black voters. Where are they going at the moment? Are they all going to Kamala Harris, or is it true that some are actually swinging towards Trump?
Sure. So certainly a great majority of black voters in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin and in America will vote for Kamala Harris. Black voters are overwhelmingly Democratic. However, there are signs that Trump has been eating into those margins, especially among working class black men. And that is true. It appears to be true in Milwaukee. And so it's a situation where if Trump can reduce the margins the Democrats get in Milwaukee, that bodes well for him statewide. Relevant to this, former President Barack Obama is doing a big get out the vote rally in a couple hours in Milwaukee today. That's absolutely is aimed at black voters there and at turning out the vote in the city of Milwaukee.
And look, we saw Kamala Harris do some really big, quite celebrity rallies, with big figures, Beyonce, of course, very, very notably. Does that make a difference with black voters?
Well, so one thing, Kamala Harris did one of these big rallies and concerts on Friday in Milwaukee with a lot of musical artists, and Cardi B, the rapper, spoke. She did not perform, but she spoke. And one of the things she said was, "I wasn't going to vote this year. I wasn't so sure about supporting Joe Biden or Donald Trump, but now I'm all for Kamala Harris." And so that's the kind of message that I don't know how many votes it moves, but that is clearly the strategy that they are employing, is hoping that someone who maybe is not like super engaged with politics might hear that message and be like, well, you know what, maybe I'm like Cardi B and I'll vote after all.
Yeah. I mean, but you're so right. I mean, those kind of hard to reach people, and they're more likely to maybe hear that message from Cardi B on TikTok or Instagram rather than through the mainstream press. And final question to you, Rob, Wisconsin, key state. How much time has Kamala Harris and Donald Trump spent in Wisconsin?
Quite a lot. There, certainly we're in, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 big rallies from each candidate in this cycle. Constant, the JD Vance and Tim Walz have been all over the state. There are bus tours going on right now. There are massive get out the vote operations. It's a really contested state, and it really feels like it.
Oh, it's going to be so exciting. Rob, what's your gut telling you? Which way do you think Wisconsin's going to swing?
Oh, I shouldn't say, but I guess I think that it seems to me that Kamala Harris has the edge. The Democrats it's a fact that Democrats have a more organized get out the vote operation, a more organized door knocking operation. And it feels like she's gonna be over the top, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. So it's not an official prediction. It's just you asked my gut. That's my gut.
Well, we're very pleased to get the reaction from your gut, Rob. Thank you so much for your time. That's Rob Mentzer from Wisconsin Public Radio. God,